time for the round table.
Far behind in terms of quality of education, quality of resources, quality of everything.
Yeah, boss.
Well, all right. First off, we have to pay ode to our star sensation, our fashionista, Ebuka. Welcome.
Why are you pointing here? There's no one here.
Yeah, very silly. But I, for me, this, and I'm really kind of passionate about this one, because I think it's really important that we kind of discuss education in Nigeria. I think education is it's so neglected for something that is so important. And there are two ends to it, because for me, even if you look at private education in Nigeria, the prices have changed. Like what it costs for my parents to send me to school, my brother out here is looking like, how is he going to send his daughter to the same school? Like the prices have just completely changed. And if the quality of public education is the way it is, and the cost of private education is where it is, then what are the people in the middle doing? And for me, it's like there becomes this huge lack of like places to look for education. And I've heard a lot recently that people are sending their kids to like Ghana or Cotonou to educate them because you can't even afford the private education here. So where do we start?
Where do we start? I honestly don't know. It's a very, very, very important conversation to have. I mean, a lot of us, thankfully, for want of a better word, were lucky enough to have gone through private school.
Yeah.
I went through private school, nursery, primary, secondary, until my university. I went to a federal university in Nigeria, University of Abuja, and I think that was the first sort of eye-opening experience I had with how bad things were. I mean, I'm proud of my school, but a very good example I always give is in my second year, computer science is compulsory, and I went through an entire year studying computer science, and I never saw a computer. Wow. I would have this. There was a picture that trended on Twitter not too long ago about this teacher in Ghana drawing. That was what happened. So we saw pictures of things, and we're supposed to write exams based on the pictures of the things we saw. I mean, we had a computer lab, but it was like some dead boxes that nobody could operate because they were just dead. And it took me going for my master's outside of Nigeria to understand what university education should have been, you know. And if at that level things are that bad, I mean, my primary school, I know a couple of people, I had a couple of friends who were in public school, and things were bad, but I know they have gotten worse. Because, I mean, it's gradually, a lot of our parents went to public schools, because public schooling then was a thing. And it's gradually, from the 80s to the 90s, gotten worse. And now you go to these schools. While I was in university in Abuja, there was a school right next door to ours where the students schooled under trees, you know, and stuff like that. And it was normal. And I would go to school every morning and just see them and, you know, wave, and they were in school. You know, and that is their reality, and that is the reality of a lot of people.
For me, it's a really, really, really scary situation in terms of in terms of looking to the future. You know, we've got a lot of things we complain about in terms of the way the older generation are working now, in terms of positions of power and all of that, politics, business, all these kinds of things. But how do we get to a position where we can take the horse and actually make it better when the majority, because we, like you said, are very fortunate. We're very fortunate to have been able to go to private school, very fortunate to have had the opportunities we had. But if the majority of the country do not have that, if we were to take the hold, are we in a position to actually do better with it?
I know that. There are certain cultures that education is not. Education is almost against the culture, type thing. So how do you start to explain that to people who you've lived your whole life and education is not a thing, and then we're now like, okay, we want to get you guys educated. How do you even start that?
I think even coming from that, I remember a certain state governor. I mean, a lot of state governors have gone through that, actually. I think coming to mind about 3 or 4 of them where they've had to let their teachers write tests, primary school tests, and a majority of them failed. So besides the infrastructure of education, it's even the quality that you're getting. So, I mean, we had, I think it was the governor of Kaduna who pretty much sacked about 30,000 teachers or something along those lines, and there was this uproar, you know, and you would think, I mean, whatever, I understand that maybe certain rules should be followed. I don't know the entire story and what, you know, I mean, the union would have their own issues with the way he did what he did. But I think looking from the point of view of what should be, naturally be like, okay, if my teacher cannot pass a primary 4 exam, I should be worried. Exactly. I shouldn't be worried about the fact that he's unemployed.
Teacher, don't teach me.
I shouldn't be worried about the fact that he or she's going to be unemployed. I should be worried about the fact that my child is being taught by this person who knows nothing. You know, and he says, okay, we're going to fix this by getting quality teachers and then find something else for these people to do. But it was still a problem. So a lot of these things are...
It's a hard thing to fix.
It's harder
if you're
than...
getting quality teachers. Can you afford to pay quality teachers?
Exactly. And...
I mean, I think about it like these days, like, I mean, I know people who grew up wanting to be teachers, but is that still a thing? Like, do people actually still want to be teachers?
And people might be passionate enough to want to be, but when you get there, can you afford to be?
Yeah, people want to be teachers at St. Xavier's.
You know,
that's
well and good, right?
I've been teacher at St. Xavier's.
Yes, you know, those, which is sad because those places already have. I'm not trying to, you know, pull anybody down, or anything, but these are people that already have it.
Be careful.
The quality there is already great. So my point being, the places that need it can't get the quality because the pay is not great, or if they're doing it because they're waiting on what.
And now you're doing it in circumstances that you can even do it.
Exactly.
You know? Like you said, the quality of teaching, but a lot of the things is how do teachers retain the information if first off they were taught this probably not in the best conditions themselves when they were at school, and then now they're teachers but they don't have things like textbooks and all the kind of necessary resources that you need to teach, so they don't even have a structure by which to teach you. So how are we starting to deal with that? They don't have textbooks, they don't have the memory to remember what they were taught at school, and so how are they educating you? By what means are they actually going through? Like, well, how are we making sure that they have the tools to go ahead and educate? But outside of that, for me, I always try to think in a very creative and innovative manner. What other avenues are there that we can use to educate kids?
Yeah.
You know, you think about things. I remember things I really liked abroad, like Art Attack when I was in England. You know, little things that like, okay, how can we educate you by what we're watching? You know, I'm a huge fan. I'm
creating content for kids.
I'm a huge fan of the BBC. Because the BBC's, their agenda is that they must, because they use taxpayers' money, they have to inform and educate before they entertain. So are there avenues in which we can take tools like that to use them? You know, I think a lot about if I'm going to private schools, if I can afford to just take a TV and run your generator for a bit, and at least I can do something once a week, can we create shows that teach people science, maths, English, and let them use those tools, you know, to at least say that, okay, I know these kids are learning something at least once a week. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's an ongoing debate around the world now about, you know, what school should be. I think it's Finland that's topped I think the World Economic Forum, they do sort of like an index of countries with best performing students around the world, and Finland consistently tops it. For as long as I think 2 or 3 decades, they've had an educational system where they don't write exams or tests, right? So there's an idea of there's no competition in school, everybody's equal. You don't write an exam until your final year of senior high school or something like that. I'm not exactly sure about the details, but there's something they're doing that's working. And I hear they're even trying to strip it down even more now, pending whatever approval they get from their legislative bodies or something, where school is now going to be like kind of what you said, based on interests. Yeah. So if you love dance, that would be your school. Yeah. You're going to school and everything they're teaching you is around dance.
I mean, that's the...
You know what I mean?
The drama school I went to study my master's, they actually had, you can start there from primary school and go all the way, and that is literally your education. You're studying drama from primary school, secondary
everything
school,
else is around
undergrad,
that.
Masters, everything is drama. And that just blew my mind, because you're walking down the hall and you have these kids that are learning the same thing that you at your master's level are learning. I was just like, how do you not come out of that with a... like Daniel Day-Lewis.
Right. It's going to be a very hard thing to do, because we're a very conservative country where things are a certain way, so they must always be that way. I mean,
that's science or art.
so my dad read this textbook, so your son must read this textbook. I mean, like I said, I went to university here. I know the age of the textbooks we had in our libraries, because that's what they know.
They knew.
That's what it is. So there's no updating, it is that. So trying to flip the educational system in Nigeria will take more than a miracle.
It will take a lot. But I believe
but those are the kind of things you should start looking at.
Let's look into doing things in a creative way that we can use to influence and help. And I really have a hard time thinking that the government will say no if you're offering them something, at least for free, in the best way you can. I mean, they know they lack resources in certain ways. So if I say that I can bring a DVD to your classroom and TV and run this, and I'll pay for the generator, for the fuel to run the generator for the time of the program, then let's do it. Let's start with something, because there's so many avenues, and we understand the importance. Because of at least a core education in English and maths and sciences, things that are considered core subjects. Because I heard a story of someone who he was, talking. He had gone to his mother's house, and the mother had a relatively young house up, 16 or so, and she was in secondary education, but she was struggling to read and write. And he was like, "How are you in secondary school? You haven't been taught to read." And she was like, "I can cut grass." They had gone to the place where it was like, okay, you can cut grass, and that's what's happening in a lot of public schools. Sadly, they're elevating people based on
grass. I was in private school, sorry.
They were using it to
but that's all you're doing,
people.
yeah.
And it was like, because I remember I did a tour of schools around Lagos in the play that I was doing, and you'd go there and that's what you'd see the kids doing. And in terms of being in actual class, I wasn't really seeing much of that.
Education should be a basic need, but people are so hungry that it is no longer a basic need. So do I have a roof over my head? Am I eating?
But the funny thing in other countries, there are people who, because of the school lunches type thing, there are people who that is the incentive for going to school to get food type thing, because the school lunch is, you probably
a few states in Nigeria have actually tried that, but there's a difference between going, okay, you're taking them to school now. What is in the school? Yeah, because I think about 2 or 3 states, even in the north, have done that, where they give you free lunch. So most parents say, okay, go to school at least. I'm not going to have to make lunch for you.
Yeah.
But then the child goes there.
But we've kind of jumped in on schools. Like, let's look a little bit outside of that. Let's look at the family, so like informal education. And that creation of values. And I think the two things they're gonna merge. But what are people teaching their kids inside of the homes that lend to the way Nigeria is right now?
I feel like that's a loaded question. We have to unpack that. I mean, I know that there's certain, when it comes to like the home and the family, it's more of like your value system, and there are certain values that are passed down from generation to generation, and I think that also informs how you look at education. Like, is education something that is held in high regard in your family? Is it? If yes, then there's a likely possibility that you would strive to get a good education. If it's not held so highly in your family, then again, it's not high on your hierarchy of needs type thing.
So, I mean, because I hear little things. I mean, you look at people, let's look at the day-to-day person that we don't interact with as much, because we're a lot more blessed. We've been very lucky. But you look at people, sometimes you worry about something like, kids out on the street begging at the windows, and you wonder what's going on in terms of education. Maybe hopefully you wish this person would be at school, but then if they go to school, what education are they getting, right? But they go and you think that, okay, I give something to this person, I'm supplying a need for this one person. But what's really happening is that parents have their kids out there doing that, and then they come back, they have to go and give it back to their parents. So I'm thinking in terms of values, in terms of that ability to understand where your kids should be. Like, in terms of a parent thinking, at this stage in my child's life, I need to be teaching them this value. I need to be taking them this way, as opposed to saying, go out on the street and do this and this. And some of it is a situation of desperation and need.
Yeah,
but how can we fix that?
You have to go back and say, okay, where was the parent at this age? That might be all they know. You know, that might be how they were raised. So that's all they know. So that's what they're going to pass down.
Yeah.
So it's
even beyond the parents with a child on the street. I think parenting generally is a responsibility a lot of people don't appreciate how weighty it is. I mean, I'm a father, so and you know the saying about you not knowing a lot of things until you're in that position, I think is very true. And until I had my daughter, there were things I would just be like, and then knowing that I'm fully responsible for this one person, naturally, thankfully for me, has triggered a lot of things in my head where I'm constantly thinking of how to make her have the most amazing life. And this is not even financially. I'm talking about, values, education. I need to arm her properly, So I don't know that a lot of parents don't know that. I know that's the double negative there. Yeah. I think a lot of people just are not in a position to actually
feel like they can acknowledge that, or actually live based on that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. There's also, sadly, we know the kind of country we live in where, I think we're talking about this before we came on air, where there's so much to work for. Because, purchasing power here is very low. So every dime is
incredibly valuable.
You need to make that money. So you have parents who are both working. Not making excuses, but it's a reality here.
Because I while I was doing this play in this tour of schools, we went to one school in Aja. I feel like I should mention the school so that we know that things need to be done about it. It was Olumo secondary school. It was a mixed school, and as soon as we got there, first off, the teacher showed us what room we were performing in, and they left. We did not see a single adult after that fact. We started performing, and next door there's this room that was locked, and we started hearing sounds which sounded like girls being sexually abused in there. And someone opened the door and they started beating the kid that opened the door, because why would you open the door? And they were literally brushing him. He had to fight his way out. And when we tried to talk to one of the students in the school about getting someone, they were like, teachers don't go there, they're scared. It's called the forbidden room. So they let all the bad students go in there, do whatever it is they want in that school at that time of day. And there are no consequences. This isn't even like a hidden room. This is a room, we were on the ground floor of the school. Like, we're in the bottom floor, just outside. It's a room right next door to where we're performing. And it's a horrible, scary thing. First off, that the teachers, even if you feel like you can't do something personally, report to some form of government, get officials in there, do something. You cannot leave kids to be in a situation where they have free reign of what they want. And effectively abuse children. People are now torturing, they're going to school and this is what they're being encountered with. And if these people are going to grow up and this is the education that they've got and this is the situation in which they were growing up in, what do you think they're going to grow up to be? What influence do you think they're going to grow up to have?
I think a lot rests with parents, and honestly cannot be overemphasized. Some people get lucky where they don't ever have the conversations with their kids, but the kids are not fine. It doesn't mean that always works. There are people who need to be guided, and a lot of children need to be guided. Yeah. And it's getting worse in the world we are today, where there's so much available to you.
Yeah, so much information.
It actually comes to you. Back in the day, you had to go look for information.
Exactly.
Now you're just chilling, and you have every information you want.
I'm actually scared about raising kids.
With raising kids now, we live in a world now, like we said, where the world comes to you. Literally, you're in your room now, you know what Trump just did. You know what I mean? As against when I was growing up, where you had to wait for the 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock news to hear even what your governor did. But here now it's, everything is at your fingertips. So a lot of these things are even not just Nigerian issues anymore. So where you want, your musicians or your actors to do certain things, whatever still happens outside will still come somehow to the child. So it still goes back to parenting for me, and you deciding, okay, what do you want to feed your child? And I think a lot of parents are not doing enough of that. I hope I can. I mean, it's easy to always criticize until you're in the position. But I mean, there's a lot of content you can drive to your child that should help raise that child.
Yeah.
There would always be music that's not child-friendly, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Should your child be listening to it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did Big Brother. There was always this, oh, why is this show on TV? It's immoral. Yeah. It's clearly rated 18. At that age, I think you're pretty much shaped.
Yeah. And also
you've seen it. So it's now up to you to tune in or not. Yeah. But we're talking about raising this child and giving them values. And at the stage where you're raising them and giving them these values, whether it's content from Italy, whether it's whatever it is, it's up to you to say, okay, this is what I want my child to know. This is what... Fortunately, there would always be the outside. I mean, we all grew up even without the internet, and we had those friends who we liked because we could go do bad things in their house or whatever it was. Yeah. But you still had the fear of God in you to come back and say, nothing happened. As against where that becomes your reality every time.
And often the thing is that when you're parents, or when you're in homes where you are being fed those things, we're human beings, and kids want to learn, and people, you often say that you learn from your own mistakes. Your parents don't want you to learn from your mistakes; they want to learn from theirs. But what happens is, what I found is that if they embed, the values enough, the Bible says, bring a child up in the way of the Lord, and you should never depart, because. Yes, you might go out and explore. It's kind of like the prodigal son, but eventually you get to a position where you come back.
But you know it's bad.
And it helps you because often it helps you, having that basis helps you have somewhere to come back to. If you don't have that basis, it's easier to kind of just end up in the air.
Like with me, I know that there's some as explorative as I can get, there's certain things that I would just
never
not do.
Exactly.
Because I'm just like, I know whose son I am.
Exactly.